So today we're going to be talking about the surprising reason why sometimes being too nice can actually lead to rejection. So I want to start this off by reading you a letter that I received through Instagram. And he starts off by saying, "Dear Lisa, I just saw your video. I recently had my ex-girlfriend break off a 3-year live-in relationship. She drank quite a bit and was abusive in emotional outbursts, but I have discovered that I was and I am codependent. I always had an addictive energy to help her, do things for her, buy her things. I was very preoccupied with her. I put up with stuff because I loved her more than I loved myself. However, I can see that my codependency was suffocating to her and my control was also a problem. My question is, I have told her about my codependent tendencies and I want to take baby steps with her to see if her changes and my changes can lead to a successful relationship. I already feel the codependent feelings of I want her to love me, etc. creeping up, but isn't it okay to want her if I separate the need in order to complete myself? I wouldn't do that with her again. I'd be more open with my feelings, focused on myself, and not offer to help her so much. I sense she doesn't want it though, and I don't want to get rejected." If you've been listening to me for a while, you know that this person, this man is struggling with codependency, that he is struggling with putting someone else's needs before his own. But what's interesting is that he's also recognizing that he's suffocating this person, and that on the surface, it looks like he is taking care of so many of her problems. It's not uncommon for someone with codependency to look for someone to take care of, to look for someone to fix, to look for someone who has a multitude of issues so that they can find their way into their lives and figure out how to fix them. And this is all below the veil of consciousness. This is not something that a codependent does on purpose. At least that hasn't been my experience. I'm going to seek out a sick puppy, and I'm going to seek out someone who has a drinking problem, and I'm going to seek out someone who's going through a horrible divorce, and I'm going to put my cape on, and I'm going to become their everything, and they'll never leave me because I am now their everything. I haven't met a codependent that does that on purpose. I'm sure perhaps there is someone like that does exist. But in my personal experience with codependency and in my professional experience, codependents are pretty devastated and shocked when it's presented to them that this might have been exactly what happened. That their tendency to attract people that need to be rescued is actually a thing. Most of the codependents that I've worked with are literally like flabbergasted when they realize, like, I think I've done that. And we start digging into why they've done that. And so it's sort of like, I like to use the analogy of a boat. Like if you have a hole in your boat and you don't know it, you're sinking. And you spend your life with a bucket in your hand trying to get the water out of the boat. And along the way, narcissists jump into the boat or people with lots of problems. You just keep inviting them onto your boat. It becomes a party boat. You end up steering the ship. You end up being the person trying to get the water off of the ship. And you don't know why the boat is sinking. You've become the broom. You've become the mop. You have been the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the life coach, the therapist, the doctor, and the nurse. And you're struggling under the weight of it. But you don't know that there's a hole in your boat. You don't know that there's something that you're doing, or if you've got a hole in the boat, there's something that you're not doing. You're not fixing the hole that's in the boat. You're just surviving. Your nose is barely above the waterline. This is not uncommon for adult children of alcoholics. Children who grew up in homes where everything looked perfect, but it certainly didn't feel perfect. This is not uncommon for people who have been adopted out. And let's say, for instance, I just received an email today from a lovely young woman who said that she was given up for adoption at 3. and was pushed around in foster care until she was 6. And she was adopted out at 6 into a very religious family that basically told her that all of her emotional problems at 6, that she should have to pray about them and give her problems over to God so she didn't feel this way anymore. If you understand abandonment trauma, attachment trauma, anxious attachment styles, if you understand the trauma of a child that has been adopted out at 3 and put in foster care, and this lack of ability and lack of predictability, the lack of the ability to bond with one person, this person that's going to make them feel safe. If you understand that, then you understand that the angst of a 6-year-old child, the fear, the night terrors are actually normal for that situation. So, you know, telling a child or giving a child the sense that what they feel is wrong, inadequate, and there's something wrong with them, and all they have to do is pray to God. And what does a child think God is at 6 anyway? And when the prayers aren't answered, what then? The child internalizes that. There's something wrong with them, and maybe they even feel abandoned by God, or they feel too broken even for God. This happens every day. Happens every day when we come from homes where parents really don't understand what a child needs, and we're not teaching people to appreciate that the first year of life is crucial. The first 7 years of life are incredibly important. That's when we're being wired. That's when we're developing these cognitive biases about ourselves and our worth, who we are. And so no, if I don't believe that I'm worthy by the time that I'm 7, or if I can't trust the people who raised me by the time that I'm 12, relationships are going to be a problem for me. These patterns are going to show up. And if I get taught that what I think and what I feel is irrelevant, I might become codependent, I might become angry, I might go into some type of fight or flight response, not be able to get out. Relationships are going to terrify me at a minimum. And so when we're talking about codependency and we're talking about feeling like we're afraid of rejection, which codependency has its root in the fear of abandonment. It's rooted in shame. I'm not good enough. Not good enough for what? Not good enough for love. Not good enough to feel seen. I don't feel good enough to be nurtured or to be valued. And so there's shame there. You can come from a home that looks completely perfect and yet feel like everything's wrong, like in the case with the adult child of an alcoholic whose both parents work, but there's no conversation between child and parent that makes a child feel seen. Everybody has a role in the family. There's the no talk rule. There's a lot of control in the family. Maybe mom is codependent towards dad or vice versa. Maybe dad's narcissistic or mom's narcissistic. Maybe there's a sibling with an issue, but no one knows how to handle it. And so the scapegoated child takes on all the shame of the family because the family doesn't know how to work through a problem. You can't work through a problem you don't acknowledge. You can't fix a hole in the boat you can't see. And so we have these boats, all of us, that's our life, and many of us have holes in the boat. And we might even feel like our life is sinking, but we can't identify where the hole is. One of the great things about labels is that it helps you give context to a problem. So yeah, you can be too nice and you can experience rejection and you might not know why, right? So the hole in the boat might be the fear of rejection. And so the fear of rejection, if you think about that which you resist persists, what do a lot of people do when they don't want to get rejected? They cling. They anticipate the needs of other people. They fawn. They do things for them. They bear gifts. They wash their car. They show up with bagels unannounced. They go to the hospital to see their aunt, right? The person going to the hospital doesn't even know their aunt, but they're doing all of these behaviors hoping that the object of their affection will find them attractive or will eventually need them. And so what this person is asking me basically is that, how am I going to deal with my fear of rejection, number one? How can I, if I speak to my girlfriend and I tell her that I am codependent and I recognize that I was controlling and I was suffocating her, if I recognize that in myself and I talk to her about it, will that be enough? And how can I deal with all of this, all of my codependency, all of my wanting to cater to and take care of, and my preoccupation with what my girlfriend was doing and what my girlfriend needed? And so he's exhibiting all the classic signs of codependency, maybe even love addiction, if it becomes a sense that he can't control his feelings and his emotions and his actions around this woman. But let's just stick with what he has identified as codependency, feeling like he has manifested someone that he needs to take care of. She drinks often, as he says, and she has emotional outbursts. Now, people who have emotional outbursts, right? It's safe to presume that someone who is screaming at you doesn't fear screaming at you. And so I would assume that in this experience with this woman has no respect for him. The catering to her has caused her to disrespect him. When you take care of someone who is disrespectful to you, the person that you're taking care of doesn't respect you. And you can actually have someone who you are trying to take care of push you away with an angry outburst because they don't know how else to deal with the impulse that the codependent person feels to smother them, right? It's almost parent-like. I'm going to smother you with all this love. I'm going to smother you with all this attention. I can't focus on myself. I'm so afraid of rejection that I have to smother you with all of this attention. I have to figure out what it is that you need. I have to anticipate it. I have to shine your shoes, shine your car, make your meals. Even though I'm sick, I have to take care of you. And I'm going to basically enmesh with you. And hopefully you'll come to the conclusion that you need someone to take care of you, almost like a child. And I will be that person. And then you'll never leave me. It's similar to when a parent treats their child like an infant, like makes the child feel like there's nothing that they can do on their own, that they need the parent to help them make all life choices. So these are parents who aren't letting their children grow up. These are parents who don't want to be alone. These are parents that enmesh with their children in a very dysfunctional way and really rob the child of a sense of autonomy and independence. And on the surface, you can hear a parent saying, but I only love my child. I'm only trying to help my child, but you're not helping a child. This is why when a child falls, you stand back and you say, it's okay, you can get up, try to get up, try to get up, try to get up. As the child is trying to get up, this child is gaining tremendous tendon strength, ligament strength, and he and she is learning that I can do this. I don't need mommy to swoop up behind me and pick me up and set me straight. One of the ways that I've raised my children, and something that has been completely profound in my life, and I think it has to do with having lost a sister-in-law who was only about 28 or 29, and watching her go through cancer treatments and actually pass away from cancer at such a young age and leave 2 children behind. And then a few years later, one of my best friends, Kathy, passed away of an aneurysm. She was 37 at the time, and she too had 3 small children. I was very aware that young mothers could die. And one of the things that really, I guess, helped me cope was, well, you have to train your children to be okay for when you're not here. God forbid this happens. So I was always very aware in my head that I have to prepare my children for life for when mommy is not here. And so I've understood this lesson of teach them. It's your job to teach them. So, because the day is going to come when they reach for that phone and I'm not going to be able to help them sort out a problem. And so when a child is infantilized, right, or if your parent doesn't allow you to be an autonomous being, it's all about your parent. It's not about you. So it's narcissistic, right? And so when we're thinking about somebody who is codependent and is using codependency as a way to gain a sense of self, we have to be careful. You're in dangerous water. Because if you're suffocating someone for your sake, is that not narcissistic? Doesn't mean you're a narcissist. It just means that if you want to heal and you want to end this codependency within you, if you no longer want enmeshed relationships, if you want to be free, if you want peace of mind, if you want authentic relationships that are not about rescuing people, it's not about fawning, it's not about tolerating your fear of rejection and manifesting people who have problems so that you can fix them, you know, which is tied to you don't feel good enough. And you think that love is conditional. And you might think that, well, I'm not worthy unless I'm doing. I have to work for love, which is a very common theme for someone with codependency. And so in this email, or actually this message on Instagram, one of the things that I want to say is that in order for this person or someone like this to be able to really heal, you have to face your abandonment. The goal of us all is to learn to just be. As hokey pokey as that sounds, we're all trying to learn to be and to let other people be, right? We're all learning to love ourselves and to love the planet and to come into alignment with our own oneness and to learn how to stop seeking a sense of I'm okay through outer experiences. You know, it's all very woo-woo. It's like the language of enlightenment. What is enlightenment all about? Enlightenment is all about learning that you are enough. It's about non-attachment. It's about being in the now. It's about being in the type of relationship with someone that isn't about conditions. It isn't about finding ways to take care of people so they don't abandon me. It's about being in a relationship with someone and enjoying time and space and allowing this person to just be who they are. And while I am learning to be who I am. So love is a shared experience. It's not about changing someone. It's not about trying to get someone to morph into somebody that needs us. That's quite dysfunctional. That's very, very unhealthy. Because what we're saying in that situation is so far from enlightenment. What we're saying in that situation is, I need to look into your eyes and know that you see value in me so that I can see value in me, which is a very superficial, materialistic way to live. It's all about the illusion. It's all about the ego's illusion, the ego's fantasy with the matrix, which is a bunch of malarkey anyway. Whenever we are looking for a sense of self and a sense of validation outside of us, we are essentially acting in a codependent way. We are giving our power up to this person. This person here that wrote me on Instagram is somebody who has neurological patterns and memories and conditioning tied to this idea that I have to do and I have to put up with and I have to take care of, I have to rescue and I have to fix a woman in order for me to believe that I have value. Which means, you know, it's sort of like the vision that I just got in my head is, you know, let's say you're a car mechanic and you identify your worthiness with how well you're able to fix a car. What happens if you're in some accident and your fingers become mangled, or you have a stroke and you can't fix cars anymore? Where does your value go? If you're somebody who thinks that you need to fix people, then you're not going to be happy around healthy people. They're not going to have any value to you. And you're not going to see any value in yourself unless you're attracting people that need to be fixed. So how dysfunctional is that? So the goal really is not to attract people into our lives that need to be fixed because the schema in our head says, I am not worthy unless I'm doing. That's dysfunctional. If that's what's going on below the veil of consciousness, that's exactly what has to be addressed. I'm of the belief that most of the patterns and programs that were created that are responsible for how we show up in life, including our propensity to be agreeable, to cater to fawn, and alike, happened before the age of 7. Something has happened in my early childhood experience that has made me feel like I should tolerate being yelled at. Something has happened in my experience that has made me feel like I'm not good enough. Something has happened in my early childhood experience that has made me feel that I need to cater to in order to feel loved. Something in my early childhood has made me fear abandonment so much that I must take care of other people almost to the point where I am neurotic about it. It's all I can think about is what she needs, what she's thinking, and what she's feeling. In order for two people to be in a healthy relationship, you have to consider space. Because without space, people feel suffocated. So if I was in a relationship with this man and he felt like he was obsessed with me, then what would happen, if you think about it, what would happen is he would move into my space and he would come down on me and enmesh on me, right? And he would not have space for his own life. And there would be no space for me to understand who he was. So when you become the object of someone's absolute desire and they can't think about anything else but you, that can be a very suffocating experience. And when someone feels suffocated, the natural thing that they do is they push people off. So how do you push someone off? You get aggressive. You can not be nice. You can be condescending. And at the same time, you can become very angry that someone is forcing their care on you that is uninvited. Have you ever been around somebody who pushes themselves on you? I made you dinner. I just ate. I made you coffee. I don't want coffee. I picked up your dry cleaning. I didn't ask you to. I'm going to drive you to school tomorrow. I have my own car. I mended your socks. You went in my drawer to mend my socks. Like, this is someone who is looking for ways to take care of you that cross boundary lines. You didn't ask to be taken care of. And there have been situations where I've noticed in my own life where there's somebody who's almost forcing this childlike role onto someone in order to almost become like their parent. So it's not uncommon for someone who is suffering with codependency to take on the role of someone else as if they are this other person's parent. It feels like a parent role. And if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't like being treated that way, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to want to push you off. And so a surprising reason that people experience rejection when they are being too nice is that the person that you're trying to be too nice to is feeling controlled. It feels like you're wanting something from me. I have had this experience myself. And it is not enough to be in a relationship with someone who adores you. It's not. That's not the goal. If you've ever had someone come at you hard that hardly even knew you and was codependent and was insecure and only knew how to take care of people and only knew that role, and you're not a narcissist, because a narcissist is actually going to exploit that personality. A narcissist is going to feel entitled to exploit the kindness and the generosity and the anticipating of the needs of the narcissist. It's all going to be exploited. But have you ever felt like someone was coming at you so hard and doing all of these things for you, and it didn't feel natural? It felt forced. It felt like almost like, even though they came bearing gifts, they were taking something from you. They were. And it's really hard when you're that person who is bearing gifts, and you are that person who is trying to anticipate the needs of other people, and you don't know how else to be. It's so sad, because you've learned that you're not enough. You fear abandonment. You fear rejection. You're getting rejected over and over and over. In your head, you don't know what you're doing wrong. You can't see the hole in the boat. And you're not recognizing that there's a reason that you're experiencing rejection. There's a reason. On the surface, sure, people lose respect for you, because in order to respect someone, you have to feel like they have boundaries. I have to know where is the line between you and I. That's going to allow me to respect you more. The more boundaries you have that are fair, we're not talking about steel walls. We're talking about boundaries like, oh, wow, I know that that's her boundary, or I know that's his boundary, right? I know who you are. If you don't have any boundaries, I don't know who you are, right? So think about a bunch of bricks that are just laying all over a lot. What the heck is that? It's a blob of bricks. And then after a year, you go back to the lot and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful building. It has boundaries. It's been organized. Now I know what I'm looking at. Now I know where the gate is. Now I know where the front door is. I know where the windows are. I know what this is that I'm dealing with now. Somebody who doesn't have boundaries is like a bunch of bricks laying in a lot. Like, who are you? If I don't know who you are, I can't respect you because I don't know who you are. I know that you might be obsessed with catering to me, and I know that you might anticipate my needs, but I don't know who you are. And in you anticipating my needs and you pushing yourself into my life, I'm feeling like you want something from me, and you do. By you taking care of me, you want me to take care of you. You want me to lean on you. You want me to need you. So that means I have to stay crippled, right? Because in order for you to cater to me, I have to be broken according to this schema that you have in your head, right? At least according to this email that I received, that he understands that he is obsessed with her issues, and he is always anticipating her needs. He's losing himself in all of that. And on the surface, it might look like, wow, this is amazing. She's found someone who can take care of her. She's got a drinking issue, and he's there with her. And even though she pushes him and yells at him and screams at him and has all these outbursts, he's such a great guy. He's standing around and he's taking care of her. I think that we have to really rethink that, because the best thing for you to do in this situation is to make sure that you have a boundary line, is to make sure that you have your codependency in check. Make sure that you understand not only that you have a hole in the boat, but how the hole got there in the first place. The last line of this instant message, or this message through Instagram, was, I sense she doesn't want it though, and I don't want to get rejected. You have to face being rejected. This is the thing. You're going to keep, like the Titanic, running into icebergs as long as you fear rejection. We all come to learn to just be. I have to learn to just be with myself, with or without a relationship. I have to learn that I am enough with or without a relationship. I cannot, going back to enlightenment, I cannot continue to look for a sense of self in the reflection of other people's eyes. How many people become world-class athletes and they feel defeated as soon as they put the gold medal around the neck? I've trained world-class athletes that have had this experience where the minute they dropped the weights on the floor, they were like, I feel defeated again. I have nothing to work for right now because I achieved this world medal. And it can be devastating to somebody who believes that their worth is tied, it's conditional. So while I'm training, I'm doing something great and I'm getting patted on the back and everyone's like, wow, she's working so hard and wow, this is amazing. So there's that sense of self, there is that sense of enoughness in the eyes of people who think I'm working so hard. And then there comes the medal. So as long as I look at the medal, I feel good about myself. But it's this attachment to something outside of me that is, this medal is giving me back a sense of I'm enough. But what will happen is when no one's looking at 3 o'clock in the morning, you realize that that medal is never going to be enough. The relationship is never going to be enough. The marathon wins are never going to be enough. What you achieve is never going to be enough because it's outside of you. And so in order to really heal this codependency and in order to stop feeling rejected, we have to stop fearing rejection and we have to stop rejecting the self. Every time we fawn and every time we cater and every time someone explodes and we don't have a boundary, every time we take care of someone with the intention, the unconscious intention of having this person need us so they never leave us, so that we don't ever have to face the wound of abandonment, every time we act that out, we are in essence rejecting the self. I believe that the surprising reason that so many of us experience rejection, even though we're so nice, is because we're rejecting the self, and the matrix is a hologram. The matrix is a mirror. If I am rejecting myself, I'm going to manifest people that continue to reject me. I will not show up in a relationship with self-respect. I will not show up in a relationship with boundaries. I will show up in a relationship without boundaries, cater to other people, and actually lose their respect. In order for you to respect me, you have to know who I am. One of the things that I think makes my relationship with my husband so healthy, one of the ways, is because he and I are so well defined. He and I are not identical. My husband has a very low tolerance for nonsense, as do I. We've both been through way too much in our life. I don't want to cater to him. He doesn't want to have to cater to me. We both enjoy the fact that we are individualized and we each have a separate self. It's amazing to be in a relationship with someone that you do not have to cater to. One of the things that Anthony says about me is that I don't have to fix her. She doesn't need me to fix her. It's a joy to be with her because she does such a good job at taking care of herself. And I take care of myself. And if we need to, if I need her, I know my wife is there. And if she needs me, she knows that I'm there. But there's this idea that we're two separate individuals. So there's interdependence rather than codependence and enmeshment. It's really difficult to wrap your mind around the idea when you are a person who tends to be too nice and who tends to fawn and people please. It's really difficult to wrap your mind around this idea that there might be an aspect of this where you're taking care of people because you want something in return. And that something that you want in return is this, please don't leave me, so I never have to face my own abandonment. In this message, he says, I have told her about my codependency tendencies, and I want to take baby steps with her to see if her changes and my changes can lead to a successful relationship. I already feel the codependent feelings of, I want her to love me, etc., creeping up. But isn't it okay to want her if I separate the need in order to complete myself. There's nothing wrong with wanting someone, and that's a beautiful thing. I want my husband Anthony in my life, but once we move into I need, then it's sort of like survival, because you need air, right? You need air. That's what you really need. You need food, and if these things were taken away from you, you wouldn't survive. So need versus want is really important in a relationship. And if we can move into I want versus I need, I think that is absolutely essential to do. Unfortunately, I think in this person's case, this woman probably has lost respect for this man. And although it could work out if both people decide to, I believe anything's possible. But he's already saying that he doesn't think that she wants to move forward with him. Probably because she has felt suffocated by his codependency. And when people feel suffocated, think about what they do. Their first response is to push people away. Get off of me. It doesn't feel right. And it can be really hard, like I was saying, for somebody who does this, who shows up as codependent and maybe even a codependent who suffocates, because not all codependents suffocate. But in this case, it sounds like that's what this man is doing. He's suffocating this woman in his life, or has. And it can be really hard when you are that person to wrap your mind around this idea that the catering to and the suffocating in the relationship was really for your benefit. It was to get something, an attachment, to prevent the person who is feeling the abandonment from having to deal with the abandonment. I get it. I was somebody who did this myself, especially after my divorce. It was like bananas. You know, I went from my mother's house to moving in with my ex-husband to becoming a mother at 23 years old. I was engaged at 21. I had all of those problems with my parents and a boyfriend earlier, and boom, now I'm engaged, and boom, I'm married, and repeating all these patterns. I had a married brain. And then after the separation and after the divorce, especially right after the separation, I was floating in an abyss. I mean, my abandonment trauma was through the roof. And there's a whole lot I would have put up with at the time, because I just didn't have the tools to face. I was so far away from enlightenment. I was in the dark ages. You know, I was like, what is this pain? Like, what? And it's terrible to say, but it's true. Like, my kids weren't enough. Like, taking care of my children wasn't enough. And I was looking for a relationship to cling to, so I didn't have to deal with I'm alone in the world. My parents walked away from me. I was losing my marriage. My in-laws were angry at me, and I don't blame them. Like, so much of my world was changing. My friends changed. It was suddenly like the abandonment trauma that I had been running away from my whole life was there front and center. And I didn't have any walls to cling to. It was terrifying. Looking back, now I get it. I understand that in the relationships that I had right after my marriage, where I was doing things similar, I was totally disrespecting myself. I was putting up with craziness. I would never put up with that today, ever. But at the time, when I didn't know what I was going through, when I could not see the hole in my boat, where I was just barely breathing, and it sounds melodramatic, but if you've ever felt this way, alone, if you've ever felt the abandonment trauma because of early childhood rejection and emotional neglect and verbal abuse and physical abuse and all different types of abuse, and you've just been living in denial your whole life, and you've been just kind of like going through the motions inside relationships, and you got by catering and fawning and people pleasing and living in denial, and then all of a sudden that all goes to the crapper, and you're left with this gigantic hole in your heart. Your brain doesn't have the information. It just doesn't have the life skills to know how to fix it. You don't know how to fix it. You are barely breathing at that point. And what makes sense is what you've always known, which is go into caretaking. Take care of someone, quick. Find someone that needs you, quick. And that'll solve everything. You just go right back into the pattern. And so it's very dysfunctional, it's very toxic. And unfortunately, it doesn't work out because, well, maybe it's a good thing it doesn't work out, because this type of pain can really help you transform your life. That's what happened to me. When I began to understand the codependency piece, when I began to understand that feeling rejected as a child, my mother did the best she could. Okay, I get it. But I still felt abandoned and rejected. It is what it is. That was my inner child's perspective. That narrative, I am not enough, I am bad, I am no good, blah, 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 that inner narrative created a bias within me. And every pattern and every program in my subconscious mind was tied to this pattern that was tied to this feeling of rejection and abandonment. So feeling rejected by my mother and even my dad and my siblings, feeling rejected by my peers. I was bullied throughout grammar school, and and almost in high school, but I put an end to that quick, because I wasn't going to go through 4 years of being bullied in high school. I absolutely was not. That was a turning point, but that's for another session. But having this external rejection of my primary caretaker, at least that's what it felt like. And who knows the various ways that I could have been rejected as an infant. While I was crying, was I sick? Whatever those early childhood experiences were. My mother gave birth to my brother 15 months after I was born. Then another baby 15 months after I was born. Then she got pregnant again 15 months later. So, maybe all of this, all these children coming in and her being stressed and living with my dad, there was just, how could you nurture one child under their circumstances? It's very difficult. And so feeling this rejection early on and having it reinforced throughout my early years, then being rejected by my peers and so on, you end up carrying that wound with you. And your brain doesn't want to look at it. Your brain wants to run away from the fear. Your brain doesn't run towards fear. Your brain runs away from fear. It takes something outside of your consciousness, or it takes consciousness, actually. You have to come out of your mind. You have to go into a different and altered state of consciousness and choose to face the fear. Because while you're in default mode, while you are in autopilot mode, your brain is going to seek the familiar. Low self-esteem always seeks the familiar. That is unconsciousness. Nobody would consciously tolerate being in an abusive relationship where they are being outwardly giving and someone is abusive towards them. No one would consciously choose that. Everybody wants to be able to give and have that whatever they give returned, and everyone wants a beautiful, respectful, reciprocal relationship. No one wants to be stonewalled. No one wants to be gaslit. No one wants to be yelled at. No one wants to be screamed at. Nobody wants that. And so when we're considering what it would take for this person to heal, this person has to understand that the only way to move forward and have any type of a healthy relationship is to stop rejecting the self. As long as we reject the self on any level, we're going to continue to be rejected. I can tell you from experience that when I stopped rejecting myself, that is when my world began to shift. It was a very grueling experience to sit with my abandonment trauma, to witness the inner child within me, to stop running, to stop pretending I wasn't as hurt or as wounded as I was, to stop pretending that there wasn't some spiritual suffering that was happening inside of me. It wasn't easy to stop smiling all the time. I had to learn to say, yeah, no, I'm going through some stuff right now, instead of, oh yeah, I'm fine. Oh yeah, everything's fine. So we will experience rejection as long as we continue to reject the self. And part of rejecting the self is us rejecting how we really feel. If we struggle with abandonment trauma, we need to face it. We've got to stop pushing reality away. We have to learn to just be with that abandonment trauma. We have to face our pain body, as Mr. Eckhart teaches us to do. We have to embrace our pain body. And what's really fabulous is if you stay on the path long enough, you realize that the pain is not you. The pain body is not you. The abandonment trauma is not you. It's an experience. It feels like you because of your limited level of self-awareness and consciousness. But as your consciousness expands and you begin to open up to reality and you stop running from it, the fear of abandonment, stop running from it, embrace it. Get off the treadmill of codependency. I've known men that do this, and I've known women that do this. They run over there to fix something. Someone needs something to be done. It's coming from a codependent place. Oh, I'm going to go over there and fix this for that person. And maybe they'll see value in me, and maybe I can get a dinner date out of it. But it's all tied to this, I need this person to see value in me. So when I look into their eyes, I see value. I see the value that they have for me in their eyes. It's dysfunctional. It's tied to the matrix. It's an attachment. And learning from this and actually experiencing this type of pain can actually be a turning point. It can actually be a place of awakening or a point of awakening where you realize that you're actually doing this thing that you do, which is causing your rejection. Are you too nice because you want something or you're avoiding something? You have to ask yourself. There are people who are nice and they're considerate, and there's nothing wrong with being nice and being considerate as long as you're not doing things because you want something in return. The next time you do something for someone, don't tell anybody about it. The next time you do something for somebody, don't expect something in return. Because if you're somebody who rejects the self because you don't feel good enough, and you're looking for people to take care of, what you're looking for is something from them. So a gift is a gift you put on the staircase of someone's apartment and you leave. You don't see how they react. They don't know you dropped it off. So there's no chance that you're going to receive something except the spirit and the energy that you actually gifted this person with. So you were giving, and the universe will return that to you. It's just the way it works. What you give, you receive, right? And so if you're going to be giving, give for the sake of giving and leave it there. In this situation with this young man, he's giving because he wants something in return. So that's really not giving anything. So when you're thinking about, him looking like he's too nice, right? And I'm sure he's a wonderful person. He's not a mean person. A little misguided, coming out sideways. The need for love is coming out sideways. I would dare to guess that his home was not as functional as it could have been, and or as nurturing as it could have been. Maybe even catered to his mother, or catered to his father, or witnessed his father cater to his mother, or vice versa. But there was definitely this caretaking style, probably modeled for him, in which he never learned the value of just being. That you are worthy because you are. You don't have to impress me. Just be who you are. Let me fall in love with who you are. What are your habits? What do you like to do? What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What makes you tick? What's interesting about you? Let me fall in love with you, not with what you can do for me. That is on the spectrum of narcissism. Because if I love you for what you can do for me, then it's about me. If you love me for what I could do for you, then it's about you, right? Which is narcissism, a trait of narcissism. It doesn't make you a narcissist. It just means that it's a trait that needs to be really, really monitored. And so that's why I think with the codependency thing and the narcissism thing, they're opposite sides of the same coin, and they need to be monitored. When you are too nice, you have to be careful of who you're being too nice to. If you're not being respected, you have to really reconsider how you're showing up in that relationship. I've seen this over and over and over in the lives of my clients where the parents are just too nice to their children. And there's absolutely no respect for the parents by the children. If anything, they've helped breed the sense of entitlement. Now these kids think that mommy and daddy are going to be there to get kicked around and get disrespected, open their wallet. No bueno. There's no responsibility in that relationship. There's no respect. But we have to respect people for who they are and where they are. And sometimes that means letting them suffer the consequences of their own choices and or their own actions or inactions. You're respecting someone when you say, I believe that you're going to be able to figure that out. I believe that you have everything it takes to figure that out. That's being respectful. When you come in and you figure things out for somebody, that's disrespectful. If anything, you're agreeing with the universe, you're making a covenant that this person can't take care of themselves. That's the last thing you want to do. So one of the surprising reasons that we get rejected when we're too nice is because below the veil of consciousness, we're rejecting the self. And our too niceness is about unconditional love gone wrong. It's about conditional love, in fact. It's about us thinking that we are not worthy unless we are overdoing for other people. It's about us overdoing and wanting that person to reflect back to us a sense of enoughness. And so if you think about a gift, when you give a person a gift, imagine leaving it on the staircase and then leaving. That's a gift. I don't know who brought me this gift. It's a beautiful whatever it is. And this person wanted nothing in return. So much so, I don't even know where it came from. That's a beautiful thing. And of course, it's not realistic, but it's an analogy that I want to offer you, because usually if you want to buy someone a gift, you want this person to know that you actually were thinking about them. So you want them to have a good feeling, but you want them to know that you cared about them enough. And this is your token of appreciation. You want them to feel valued, but it's not tied to, now that person thinks I'm awesome because I bought them a gift. You see, that's where it becomes toxic. That's where it becomes no bueno. And so if you think about the analogy of dropping a gift off on a staircase and leaving, that's a gift. If you think about doing things for someone else, then wanting a sense of self in return, that's not a gift. That cancels out that energy. And that's going to keep you stuck to the energy of the original abandonment wound. And that's going to keep you abandoning the self, and you will continue to receive abandonment into the future. You will continue to be rejected into the future until you get off this karmic wheel, until you come out of this pattern, until you come out of the subconscious mind, until you reprogram your mind for something new, a new paradigm. How do you do that? Well, you deal with your codependency. That's what helped me. You know, understanding why I was codependent, understanding my early childhood trauma, learning to sit with my feelings of abandonment rather than run away from them or condemn them or hate them. I just embraced all of my feelings. I learned to just be, right? I learned to sit with everything that I was afraid of. I learned to sit with my shame. I saw my shame as an experience. It wasn't my shame. All of this, it wasn't me. It was my programming. I learned to disidentify. And I realized that at my core of my being, I was enough. I had to practice. I had to train my brain to believe something else. This didn't happen like this. This took months. It takes years. I'm still working on my programs. I can still get triggered and have to reel myself back in and ask myself, was that a codependent thought or a non-codependent thought? Like, what are my intentions behind doing that thing? And it keeps me balanced. But thank goodness I've created this space in my mind where I can be objective, where I can observe. I can sit as the witness of an experience, witness an emotion, and not freak out about it anymore, which is a beautiful thing. And I really hope that some of the work that I put out there is allowing you to see the process, because this is a process. You can learn how to do this, but you can't fix a hole in your boat or a hole in the wall you can't see. And I don't think it's enough to fix the hole in the boat or the hole in the wall unless you know why you got the hole in the wall or the hole in the boat in the first place. And so if you're struggling with codependency, you have to ask yourself why. And once you figure out why, then you've got to heal the why. That means you have to deal with your abandonment. You have to figure out your anxious attachment style or your particular attachment style. And you have to deal with learning how to sit with the emotions that scare you the most so that you can eventually learn to disidentify them and see them as experiences while at the same time you're reprogramming your mind. You can use my meditations on Insight Timer or on YouTube. You can go to my podcast and listen to my meditations. You can rewire your brain that way. That'll definitely help. You can work inside one of my programs. You can work with a trauma therapist. There are many different ways that you can deal with your codependency. But I can tell you, it's no different than a crowded, musty, moldy basement. That old furniture that's been waterlogged, that through the leak that's coming in through the foundation, that furniture ain't going nowhere until you take it out. You need elbow grease. It takes effort. And it's the same thing with changing your programs. It takes effort. It doesn't happen by watching a video. It doesn't happen by listening to a podcast. It happens by committing yourself to a process of reprogramming your mind. So, if you want to stop feeling rejected, you have to stop rejecting yourself. You have to stop rejecting your emotions. You have to learn to embrace your emotions and understand that your emotions are indicators. And you have to find as many ways as possible to process the emotions that are causing you to act inappropriately, and in some cases, almost neurotically, that leads to these toxic relationships and leads to ultimately you being rejected by people that you're wishing to be in a relationship with. Namaste, everybody. My name is Lisa A. Romano. I'm the Breakthrough Life Coach and best-selling author. And if you'd like to listen to one of my books for free, you can do that by clicking one of the links in the description box. And if you would like to participate in the on-demand 12-week Breakthrough Coaching Program, which is being offered at 50% off, you can do so by clicking the link below. You can begin that program immediately. Or you can wait to participate in a live class. Every week I offer a live Q&A, and during the week my life coaches moderate the questions and the posts on Facebook. If you want to know more about the audio products that I have available and or my membership, just go to my website at www.lisaaromano.com. Namaste, everybody. Be careful out there, and don't forget to think. Bye for now. If you love this content, check out the next video, and don't forget to click the link below so you can take the codependency quiz. Doesn't everybody want to get revenge on a narcissist who's lied to you, who's cheated on you, who's smeared your name? It's a natural response to want to push back when someone pushes you.